everyone. You're welcome to cetrocraft.com. Today we want to arrive at this double peplum design. And in arriving at this, we're going to start with cutting out our fabric. So come along with me. To cut out your fabric, we cut our fabric on fold, in, out. You start this way. This is your fabric. You start this way, you fold it. And in folding your fabric, some persons will fold to an extent that they will waste a lot of their fabric. No, you have to, the determining factor to the extent of your fold will be the bust of the person you're sewing for. You do a glance and say, today I'm using a bust 40. That bust you divide it by 4, that's 10. Bust 40, then plus your allowance is 12. Something like this. I shouldn't have this fold more than 13 inches. So I'm having something like 13 inches here. I know this is an appropriate fold for this measurement. So let's start from the start. Now, when you want to cut out your fabric, you look out for the first step is what you look out for. Actually, it's the shoulder. Some persons call it your back. The shoulder. We're talking about the shoulder. You make sure you get the ankle. You make sure you get these collar bones. And so this shoulder is 15 and a half. 15 and a half. When you're talking about shoulder for a female fabric, you divide that shoulder into 2. So let's do that mathematics together. 15 and a half. 15 divided by 2 will give us 7 and a half. So 7, then you divide that half. So we have what we have. We call it 7 3/4. We don't use points in fashion. So we have 7 3/4. So this 7 to be minus this 7 and a half, and this 7 3/4. And may I point it out so clear here that what determines the shape of your cloth actually is your shoulder. You see some persons wearing some clothes, this shoulder like this I'm wearing, the shoulder will be here. That's, you know that measurement, it's totally wrong. Or the shoulder will be here. The normal place is where you can feel this bone. That's where your shoulder will be standing. Clothes that have puff, their shoulder will go in a bit as compared to clothes that have jacket cuts like this. This is a jacket cut and this is a puff cut. So we have for this cloth, for this fabric, we have 7 3/4. And by my measurements using the tape rule, this 7 3/4. Some persons like putting allowance on the back, but I tell you, when you put allowance on your back, it's gonna give you something you don't really like. So after that, the first step is your shoulder. It's very easy. Sewing, it's just as easy as A and B and C. If you can just follow the steps we'll be following this day. I said the first thing is you fold your cloth in, out, then you go to the shoulder. That shoulder will be divided by 2, so we have 7 3/4. At the edge of that 7 3/4, you now take your tape rule. You want to get your armhole. Your armhole is this portion. See, you can look at me. Your armhole is this portion. For some persons that are on the plumpy side, their armhole will be 10. Some persons that are very, very tiny, theirs will be 7, 8. But for someone like me, mine is 9. So we're going with 9 with this particular fabric for the cutting of our armhole. So from that point of your back, the next thing is what? You cut out your armhole vertically 0.9, then you 9 centimeter, then you rule it. You have a straight cut. You join it vertically and horizontally. when you're sewing, cutting out your fabric, it's very important you're good at drawings, carving out things. It's really going to help you. Like that, we now go to the next thing. As you can see, we have the straight cord, that's the armhole. When you have the straight cord, the armhole, from this point, you do what? You curve out the armhole. It's a curve, and you have that vertical point. Curve it out this way. Yeah. And from then, the next thing is, from that armhole, as you can see, from this point, you have your bust. As you can see, you have your bust. From that armhole, you have your bust. So, the bust for this particular fabric is 40. When you're talking about bust, this cloth is folded into two. This particular folding, it's the front part. It's the front part. Then you have the second folding for the back part. And this front part, that's telling now we have the division into 4 places. That means you'll be dividing your bust measurements by 4. So for a person using bust 40, when you want to measure this, you're getting divided by 4. That means you'll be having 10. So 10 inches. So 10 inches. This 10. You make the mark there. After the 10, whatever you're doing in fashion, in sewing, whatever you do, you must always make allowance for errors. Maybe it's too big, it's too much. So there is always a room for adjustment, and that allowance, it's basically 2 inches will be okay. So I put my tape rule here, and this 2 inches allowance. Then we've arrived at the bust. From the bust now, we now go from top. We measure the half length for this particular peplum. As you can see, it's 16. But we will not go by that 16. We're going to have sewing allowance. We're going to add ½ inch to it. That will make it 16 and a half. Because by the time you'll be sewing in this place, at least you'll be using half. Then here you also be using half. So let's particularly make it 17 inches. So that's the half length. You measure your half length just vertically. That's 17 inches. And you rule the horizontal line. That's 17. So we've arrived at this 17. Then for the waist, after arriving at this half length 17, we now want to arrive at the waist. The waist, the blouse waist, from the point of the insertion of this double peplum. The waist for this particular measurement I'll be using, it's a person using a waist 34. The waist measurement also applies as that of the bust measurement, because it's into 4 places. So you divide that 34 by 4, and that will give you 8.5 inches. So you take your tape rule, on that same line you have 8.5 inches. You make an insertion of the mark. Then you put your 2 inches allowance, plus or minus anything, you'll be able to adjust it. 2 inches. Yes, we're done, we're set. You just curve out this. Yeah. That's it. We cut it out with that curve. The neck. This is having a round neck, a circular neck. In achieving this, we get up measuring 3.5 horizontally by 3.5 vertically. cut out a straight line. Then you make a curve. Please follow me carefully. Make out this curve.